Okay, perfect. We'll go ahead and get started. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much again for signing on. My name is Victoria Moreno, and I am the moderator for today. Also the chair of TNT, which we'll be talking more in depth about later. But again, thank you all so much for your time. And let's go ahead and get started on COVID-19 and smoking. Can you cope? So a couple of housekeeping rules, terms to start. The disclaimer, we have a disclaimer here just letting you all know that the session is being recorded. So if you choose to be anonymous, please feel free to use an alias or change your camera. You can turn your camera off or use a different wallpaper or background if you'd like. Just letting you, again, to know that. Moving forward, this is an educational webinar just to share opinions on scientific information by health professionals and prevention specialists, just to stimulate thought and further analysis. It doesn't have any reference to medical diagnosis or the necessity for treatment of any kind. And this presentation does not have any endorsements or constitute the promotion of services of any kind. Perfect. So for all of you that are going to be requesting continuing education credits for today's webinar, they're displayed here: LPC, LMFTs, LCSWs, LMSWs, LCDCs. For anyone wanting to request 1 hour of those, please use the link that's here or the QR code that's here to check in. If you will not be needing these continuing education credits, you will not need to check in. So this is only for those that are requesting these credits. So I'll give you all a couple of seconds to just sign in. And let me add the link here to the chat really quickly. Okay, great. So please feel free to check in. You don't have to check in now. You can check in a little bit later on, but please feel free to check in if you want those credits. But okay, great. So moving on here, for today's speakers, we have Miss Devika Rao, Dr. Devika Rao, and Miss Kristen Bridgman. So just a little bit more about them, because I know that we're all pretty curious about who our speakers are. Dr. Rao is with the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center. She received her medical degree from Baylor College of Medicine in Houston in 2006 and completed her pediatric residency at Emory University School of Medicine in Atlanta, Georgia in 2009. She completed her fellowship training in pediatric pulmonology at Boston Children's Hospital in 2012. She is now an assistant professor of pediatrics at UT Southwestern Medical Center, where she is the medical director of the Pulmonary Function Testing Lab. She has seen and treated numerous children for vaping, e-cigarette related lung injury at Children's Health in Dallas, and she was invited by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention to participate in the formulation of national clinical guidance in the treatment of e-cigarette related lung disease in 2019. She has been interviewed by numerous local media outlets regarding her experience in treatment of vaping injuries, as well as by the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. Her other interests in pediatric pulmonary medicine include pulmonary manifestations of sickle cell disease, for which she started a multidisciplinary clinic in conjunction with pediatric hematology in 2013. moving forward, we have Kristen Bridgman, Advanced Prevention Specialist with Mosaic Family Services. Kristen has been a prevention specialist with Mosaic Family Services since 2013. She has a passion for helping children and teens find joy in the mundane as they discover who they are. Her hobbies include nature walks, reading, nerdy adventure fantasy sci-fi books, and exploring the many possibilities provided by a stand mixer and an ice cream maker. So again, a huge thank you to both of our speakers first today. Thank you so much for your time, expertise, and commitment to enhancing health in our communities. So without a doubt, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Miss Kristen Bridgman.
Thanks, Victoria.
Of course.
Is that the screen I want to share? Just one moment. Are you seeing the right screen there? Oh.
Not yet.
Oh, no. Hold on a moment. There we go.
Perfect.
Oh, I'm sorry, that is not correct. Just a moment. Okay, that's better. All right, so hello everyone, and welcome to COVID-19 and smoking. My name is Kristen Bridgman, and I am an associate prevention specialist with Mosaic Family Services in Dallas, and I've been doing this for about 7 years now. So let's get started. So to start with, I want to let you all know a bit more about Tobacco-Free North Texas. Tobacco-Free North Texas, or TNT as we call it, is a community coalition dedicated to reducing the burden and impact of tobacco use through education, action, and smoke-free initiatives in North Texas. TNT is a coalition within the Prevention Resource Center, Region 3, at the Recovery Resource Council. To achieve our goals, we partner with agencies that share our mission, including the American Cancer Society, Youth 180, the REACH Council, Mosaic Family Services, which is me, Tarrant County and Denton County Public Health, the Texas Health and Human Services Coalition, colleges and universities in North Texas, and many other tobacco prevention providers. We also invite community members like yourselves to join the efforts. If that's something you might be interested in, please use the contact information on the slide that you see here to get in touch with us. TNT is your community resource for tobacco, secondhand smoke, and cessation-related education and information in North Texas. And I'm looking forward to hearing about some vaping today. Okay, so here's a little overview. Today we're going to talk about good stress versus bad stress. We're going to talk about how stress affects our mental health, stress and smoking, coping mechanisms, and smoking cessation resources. Before we dive deeper into this concept of good stress versus bad stress, I want to begin by saying that all of us experience stress a little bit differently. Because each of us is unique, our stressors, reactions to stress, and coping mechanisms are all different as well. Stress can be handled as defined as the degree to which you feel overwhelmed or unable to cope as a result of pressures that are unmanageable. For many of us, COVID-19 has caused an array of stressors to suddenly emerge and sometimes repeatedly emerge as we continue through this pandemic together. Because stress is a risk factor for smoking, we'll be discussing that as well. So good stress, or what psychologists refer to as eustress, is the type of stress we feel when we get excited. Our pulse quickens and our hormones surge, but there's no actual threat or fear. So we feel this type of stress when we ride a roller coaster, you know, the stress that you feel right before you go over the hill. Maybe when you compete for a promotion or go on a first date. There are many triggers for this good stress, and it keeps us feeling alive and excited about life. And full disclosure, I usually present to kids, so I was a little bit stressed feeling this kind of pressure today. So that's my personal example. Many of you would probably be with me on that. I'm feeling good now. So another couple examples we have in the pictures here. On the left, we have the soccer player under intense pressure to score that winning goal in a shootout. So he's practiced for this, win or lose, he's ready to take that shot. And then the butterflies on the other side, that's the feeling of butterflies in your stomach when you go on a first date. Both of those feelings of stress involve a person taking a positive risk that gives them that feeling of excitement. So another type of stress is acute stress. It comes from quick surprises that need a response. So acute stress triggers the body's stress response as well, but the triggers aren't always happy and exciting. This is what we normally think of as stress or bad stress. Acute stress itself doesn't take a heavy toll if we find ways to relax quickly. Maybe breathe or something. Once the stressor has been dealt with, we need to return our bodies to homeostasis, or its pre-stress state, in order to be healthy and happy. So acute stress might be like the scenario pictured on the left. As many of you remember, during the mandatory quarantine back in March and April, it was very difficult to find basic supplies such as non-perishable food items, cleaning supplies, sanitizing supplies, toilet paper. The feeling of going into a store and being unable to find what you need for yourself or your family was terrifying. But sometimes you found another store with more supplies or waited a few days for the next shipment. And after that, you were okay and your body went back to homeostasis. So chronic stress is another form of bad stress. It occurs when we repeatedly face stressors that take a heavy toll and feel inescapable. A stressful job or an unhappy home life can bring chronic stress. This is what we normally think of as serious stress. Because our bodies aren't designed for chronic stress, we can face negative health effects, both physical and emotional, if we deal with chronic stress for an extended period of time. The photo on the right shows an example of chronic stress. This mother is struggling with working from home, teaching her children from home, and trying to provide for her family all at once. Although she may enjoy her job and love her children, the stress of working from home and helping her children do their school all at the same time, day in and day out, is just too much. And this is where many of us find ourselves right now. Although not all of our situations look like this, a variety of serious stressors are affecting all of us as a result of the virus, and good coping mechanisms to deal with these stressors are more important than ever right now. So how does stress affect our mental health? After hearing about what stress looks like, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, I can feel it in my body. What's it doing to my head? Okay, so to begin with, stress causes emotional changes. When you're stressed out, you may experience many different feelings, including anxiety, fear, anger, sadness, or frustration. These feelings can sometimes feed on each other and produce physical symptoms, making you feel even worse. For some people, stressful life events can contribute to symptoms of depression. Secondly, stress causes bodily changes. When stressed, some people experience headaches, nausea, or indigestion. You may breathe more quickly, perspire more, have heart palpitations, or suffer from various aches and pains. You'll quickly return to normal without any negative effects if the stressor is short-lived. But many people are able to deal with a certain level of stress without any lasting adverse effects. If you experience chronic stress, however, you may notice your sleep and memory are affected, your eating habits may change, or you may feel less inclined to exercise. Some research has also linked long-term stress to gastrointestinal conditions like irritable bowel syndrome or stomach ulcers, as well as conditions like cardiovascular disease. Lastly, stress causes behavioral changes. When you are stressed, you may behave differently. For example, you may become withdrawn, indecisive, or inflexible. You may not be able to sleep properly. You may be irritable or tearful. Stress can make you feel angrier or more aggressive than usual. Stress may also affect the way we interact with our close family and friends. Some people may resort to smoking, consuming more alcohol, or taking drugs. This is a very important concept, and we'll discuss it further on the next couple of slides. So let's go over how smoking can tie into stress. So like previously discussed, some people smoke when they feel stressed. They use smoking as a way to cope. There are many problems with using cigarettes as a way to cope with stress or other unpleasant feelings. And we know many of them, but here's a few more. Smoking is not a long-term stress reliever. In the time it takes to smoke a cigarette, you could be doing something that's actually effective, like take a walk or trying relaxation exercise like some deep breathing. And both will actually relieve that stress, even if smoking feels like it might do it for just a moment. So smoking doesn't actually solve the problem that's giving you the stress. Unfortunately, your stress will return so long as you have the problem. And nicotine addiction itself causes stress. So those cravings for nicotine feel stressful because your body begins to go through withdrawal when you don't have that nicotine in your system. Additionally, evidence suggests that smoking is associated with increased severity of disease and death in hospitalized COVID-19 patients. So smoking nearly doubles the rate of COVID-19 progression, which is pretty scary, especially if we're smokers or we have people in our lives that we love who are. It's definitely something that we're all thinking about. So some smokers find it hard to give up cigarettes as a way to cope with stress. It's important to find healthy ways to handle stress and take care of yourself without smoking. So let's talk about that a little bit more. So smoker or not, there are many other ways to cope with stress. So let's look at some healthy coping strategies. So like we discussed earlier, everyone's different. So no coping strategy is going to be the same for everyone, everyone's not going to do the same coping strategies. You might do one of them, but you're not going to have all the same ones. But here's a few to experiment with. Maybe you can take a look at the slide and see if there are any that you are already participating in, or any that you might want to try. So I know for myself that taking a walk in nature, as maybe you heard in my bio, is something that I personally like to do that I find helps me with stress. A lot of people, of course, participate in yoga, listen to or play music. Music actually engages a different part of our brains, so that can be a great one. Therapy, obviously. Some of you probably like to have a spa day, and that helps a lot with taking down that stress level. Exercise can do more for stress than most things. Just like it doesn't solve the problem, but it definitely makes you feel better. And then finding that new hobby. So a few more just strategies that you can try for dealing with stress or problems. So one of them is humor. So if you point out an amusing aspect of the problem at hand or reframe the problem, that can help deal with some of your small problems. Seeking support. So either asking for help from a friend or family member, or maybe this is where that you would ask for therapy, or maybe someone who can deal with your particular problem. And that can be an effective way of maintaining emotional health during a stressful period. So problem solving, that's an instrumental coping mechanism. That'll help you find the source of the problem and determine some solutions. Once again, relaxing, and lots of different relaxation activities, whether it's breathing, practicing calming techniques, like maybe some of those apps that help you calm down. They can manage your stress and improve overall coping. Physical recreation. So regular exercise, running, team sports, and maybe not team sports right now, but it is good to see people, isn't it? Is a good way to handle stress of some given situations. Meditating, progressive muscle relaxation. And then another one can be adjusting our expectations. So anticipating various outcomes to scenarios in life may assist us for preparing for the stress associated with any given change or event. So a couple unhealthy coping strategies that we need to be aware of so we can identify them in ourselves. Denial. So avoiding the issue altogether may lead to denying that a problem even exists. And this can be maintained by a distraction or excessive alcohol consumption, smoking, overworking, sleeping too much. And then another one we need to be aware of is self-blame. So internalizing that issue and blaming ourselves for situations that are beyond our control or beyond even our responsibility. So this can lead to low self-esteem and sometimes depression. And then one more coping strategy to be careful with, venting. So I think a lot of us like to vent if we have something challenging going on in our lives and talk about it with another person. And that can be healthy in moderation. However, if we are ruminating on the negative, it can lead to straining some of those relationships over time. Something I would recommend if you would like to vent without straining those relationships is writing out all of your thoughts and feelings in a journal. So that can be a very healthy way to vent. So of course, this is not an extensive list. This is just a short one, but good to experiment with some of these. And that's a good way to start your journey to incorporating healthy coping mechanisms into your life. So smoking cessation resources. Smoking is an unhealthy coping strategy for dealing with stress. And let's go over a few ways to help get you on your path to quitting for good. Okay, and I think we actually missed one on that last slide there. Okay, so 1-800-QUIT-NOW, that's from the CDC, and you see their website right there for free help to quit smoking. And then on this slide, all of these resources are free, just like we have different things that stress us out and different ways of dealing with stress. Smoking cessation resources are not one size fits all. So if one doesn't work for you, that's fine. Just go try another one. There's different ones for different groups of people, whether it's a teenager, an adult, or depending on what kind of situation they are in. There's a lot of different ones that you can check out. So these can all be accessed from the safety of your own home and help you get on the right track for a smoke-free life. One of the ones that I was checking out recently that's on this slide is the Truth Initiative. I noticed they have many resources for just learning about the effects of tobacco on our bodies and brains, whether it's traditional cigarettes or vaping. I learned so much just from checking out their website. So I'll give you a moment to take down any of those that look interesting to you.
Hi, Kristen, and we actually have a question in the chat. Don't know if you caught it, but let me read it
Oh, I
to you.
can't see the chat box, so go ahead and read it to me.
It says, this is a question from Gregory Robbins, and they ask, can the busy mom example lessen her stress by compartmentalizing those issues that cause stress?
Can the busy mom lessen her stress by compartmentalizing the issues that cause stress?
Yes.
I think looking at that question, I would want to poll the busy moms themselves and ask them if that works for them. I'm not a busy mom, not a mom, so I'm not sure that I can personally answer that question, and I would ask the mothers for advice on that one.
Right. I think it would take time. Kim is a mom of
Yeah.
3.5-year-old and a 5-year-old, and she says compartmentalizing is fine, but it does take time to process.
All right. Thanks for that question.
Great. I think that's all we have for now.
Okay. Well, I will continue on. We're almost finished here. On this last slide, you'll see a QR code for a Quit Kit. And I believe the Quit Kit probably has links to the cessation programs you saw on the last slide. I see Victoria's nodding, so yes, you'll see those there. So we invite you all to use our virtual Quit Kit. Quit Kits are designed for the smoker or vapor who's ready to start their journey towards a smoke-free life. Quit Kits contain an array of invaluable information guiding an individual ready to quit on how to start their quit journey, how to curb temptations, and how to seek further resources. So you can access the booklet via the QR code here, or simply type the link into your browser. And then we also have the 2020-2021 color in calendar. I know some of you find it relaxing to color, so there's a bunch of coloring sheets in the form of a calendar that you can print off with the other QR code. I'll give everyone just a moment there. Or maybe someone could put those links in the chat box.
Yes, I'll make sure to add those links, Kristen.
Okay, links will be in the chat box. Okay, so we're finished here, and this is my presenter contact for Mosaic Family Services. Our mission is that we support, educate, and empower the multicultural individuals and families of North Texas. If you'd like to get in touch with my youth program, there's 5 of us, and we serve children and youth and their families. The mystaff@mosaicservices.org email address will get you in touch with us. If you want to learn more about Mosaic, it's the website at the top there. And then our Instagram is mostly for youth. So if there's youth in your life, you can give them that Instagram handle. And any adults, parents with youth or children might want to check out our Facebook page. So thank you so much for listening into this section of the webinar. And before we move on to Dr. Rao's presentation, I'd like everyone to consider joining TNT. We need community members like yourselves to make true change in our community. And I would especially encourage you, if you know of youth who want to be involved in TNT, to send them, because all coalitions need youth on them. So thank you very much. And I am going to turn this over to Dr. Rao.
Kristen, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Do you provide resources also for like low-income families? I struggle to find help for kids that come from, low-income families, low socioeconomic status, just because mental services are so hard to come by in Texas.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Okay. Thank you for that great presentation. I learned so much from that. I definitely need a stress check. So I will be printing out that calendar. Thank you. Let me see. Can you guys see my slides?
Yes, we can, Dr. Rao.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is really an honor to be able to speak to all of you about something that I'm really passionate about, and that's e-cigarette use and vaping. So I am a pediatric pulmonologist, and I work for UT Southwestern. I see patients in the outpatient and inpatient setting, and I've seen a lot of kids with vaping lung injuries. My interest is really reaching out to communities, including people like yourselves who see teens in the community, just to help educate what the truth is about e-cigarette use, because there's so much misinformation, and these e-cigarette companies are really powerful and they have very well-funded marketing strategies. And so hopefully this will be informative. So the objectives today are to describe what e-cigarettes look like, what they are and what they contain, to describe the adverse health effects of e-cigarettes, and to discuss the addiction potential of e-cigarettes in adolescents and children. So starting with some tobacco facts, we know that smoking is the #1 cause of preventable death in the United States. It's responsible for 1 in 5 deaths. And we are seeing that traditional cigarette use amongst teens and adolescents has been steadily declining over the past several decades. However, the #1 tobacco product that is used by children since 2014 is now the electronic cigarette. Almost all of regular tobacco use in adulthood begins in the teenage years. And so what we're kind of seeing is a trend where we're kind of addicting a whole new generation of teenagers to nicotine, as well as to these other products that e-cigarettes contain. And we're backtracking decades of work that we've done to educate teens about the dangers of nicotine. So what is vaping? Vaping is the act of inhaling and exhaling an aerosol produced by an electronic device that aerosolizes liquid ingredients. And so this diagram shows the components of an e-cigarette. So you have a mouthpiece, and that's the part that you put in your mouth, and you inhale the liquid that's heated by a battery that produces a aerosolized substance that you then inhale into your lungs. there are many different generations of e-cigarettes. The first generation shown on your left shows that there was really an attempt to mimic the look of e-cigarettes. The second generation, third generation in the middle and on the right showed a move away from looking like e-cigarettes to employing a battery-powered device with a rechargeable battery in a compartment that could be reused, either by using a cartridge to refill or by using what we call an e-juice to pour in juice into a compartment, and you can reuse the device over and over again. On the right, on the far right, you see a picture of Juul, which was becoming extremely popular and accounted for 80 to 90%, perhaps even more, of e-cigarette sales, and was known for a powerful battery, a very potent nicotine that delivered a very strong hit to the brain, especially in teenagers, and was notorious for being extremely discreet, that something that teens could kind of stick in their pockets, use in class, and no one would really notice. And in fact, there was such a prominent use of these e-cigarettes known as Juul, to the point where bathrooms in high schools were being called Juul rooms rather than bathrooms.
Dr. Rao, sorry to interrupt. Would you mind displaying the presentation in presenter mode?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
That's weird. It's like doing this automatically. Hold on a second.
There we go. I think if you look like on the bottom sidebar, the little
Yeah,
presenter.
it's kind of doing it on its own. Thank you for letting me know.
Problem.
I'm just gonna do it this way because I feel like if I resume the slideshow, it's going to mess it up again. All right, I'm just gonna do it this way. Okay, so so now what's actually replacing Juul? So there was a policy that was enacted by the FDA this year, where e-cigarette companies, in an effort to curb these products, e-cigarette companies were required to submit an application to the FDA in order to keep their products on the market. And the deadline was actually in October. From what I've heard from people who work in Washington, is that the FDA is very much overrun with many, many applications, and people have no idea how they're actually going to be able to process all these applications. And specifically, the goal was to get these flavored e-cigarettes off of the market. And in the past year, Juul actually took off many of their flavored e-cigarette devices off of their website, and other companies have employed strategies to kind of mimic what Juul was doing in order to improve their sales. So then came the disposable e-cigarette devices, specifically Puff Bar was one of the most popular ones, to use the same technology that Juul used, with a powerful battery to deliver a strong hit to the user. And we're seeing teens using these devices now as well. Here's another example. This is Hilt, which is a disposable pod. These are relatively inexpensive. You can get them for like 10 bucks. And so what you have with this problem of e-cigarette use is these devices, and we know that teens are very creative. They can figure out how to make something useful in so many different ways. So teens will use these devices and fill them with whatever substances that they want to inhale. So whether that's marijuana, other illicit drugs, the teens are being very, very creative with their use of these refillable e-cigarettes. There's also the phenomenon known as dripping, where you place nicotine directly on a heated coil, and it helps the user enjoy a thicker flavor, and they have a stronger hit of the nicotine to their brain. And this was becoming more popular as well. What's been popular in the last year or so are the use of non-nicotine electronic cigarettes that are filled with other substances for a pleasurable experience. The big thing now is melatonin, which you see here on the right. This is a company called Cloudy that markets what they call a diffuser. So they're being really, really clever in their marketing strategy, because we think like diffusers, essential oil, smells good, there's no harm to it. But who knows what kind of substances are in these devices? They're not regulated by the FDA. No one's analyzed them for all the different components that are in them. And yet this is being marketed as a safe tool that helps people to sleep. And I recently let my pulmonary colleagues know about this product. One of them, who has a teenager in college, said that her son asked her about this product and if it was safe. The response that he got was, inhale oxygen and nothing else, which is what I will say. There's another company called, I think it's called Inhale Breath, where they market products where you're not inhaling breath, where you're inhaling all sorts of other things. And in here, you see a product that contains vitamin B12 for your health. So as you guys, I'm sure, know, based on your professions, there is a growing number of high schoolers that are using electronic cigarettes. This is data that came out in 2019. This was supposed to be a audience participation question, but I don't think, for some reason, my presenter mode isn't working. But in 2019, a survey representative of a national sample found that almost 28% of high schoolers were using e-cigarettes. And the rate of e-cigarette use has more than doubled amongst middle and high schooler students since 2017. More recently, data from the CDC in 2020 showed there was a little bit of a decline in e-cigarette use amongst high school students. It's felt that marketing strategies, it's felt that the national reporting on the vaping lung injuries that landed many teenagers in the hospital contributed to the decline in e-cigarette use, but it's really unclear. I also wonder how much the pandemic may have influenced these numbers as well. I think for a time being, for a little bit of time, teens probably had reduced access to these types of devices. And so the use of electronic cigarettes has made national headlines across the country, where across many different newspapers, magazines, they were reporting how parents were complaining to school boards about the problem of vaping in schools, and that teenagers were also experiencing difficulties because they're just so addicted to the nicotine in electronic cigarettes. Locally in Dallas, I remember one story where a student athlete in high school was telling his story about how many of his friends were unable to compete in competitive sports due to the effects of frequent vaping. Why do teens start using electronic cigarettes? So the number one reason why teens start using electronic cigarettes is because a friend or family member has used them. This is really, really important to remember, because electronic cigarette companies market their products to adults, claiming that their products will help them quit smoking, or that it's a safer way to use nicotine that's with reduced harms compared to regular combustible cigarettes. And that has worked, and teenagers and young children are seeing their adult family members use these and getting a hold of these devices. And so it's very natural that if more and more adults start using a product, that the teens who are under their care are going to also start using these products. The second reason was flavorings, and this has also been in the news, and there has been a push to ban flavorings, and that's currently in the works, and I'm hopeful once the pandemic is taken care of, hopefully sometime next year, things will improve, that this issue will again come to light, and that's something that policymakers will work on. Thirdly is the notion that e-cigarettes are less harmful than regular combustible cigarettes. So in general, teens don't really think electronic cigarettes are harmful. This is probably changing in the past year or so, but as you can see here, data from a survey done in 2016 showed that of the teens surveyed and think that there is no or little harm with the following products, that 38% were using electronic cigarettes, compared to almost 10% regular cigarettes. And even if they do think that e-cigarettes are harmful, they're actually still using these products. So here you can see that teens who have used e-cigarettes in the past 30 days, well, a significant percentage of them are using their products to this frequency, even though they think there is some harm or even a lot of harm. And why is this? And I think this all gets back to clever marketing, as well as seeing family members and friends use these products. Now, what are these products depicting? Is it a food, a candy, a juice, or is it an e-cigarette? It's hard to say. The marketing strategies are really, really successful. This looks like an asthma inhaler, but it's actually an e-cigarette. Above looks, the figure on the top, that looks like a lipstick. That's actually an electronic cigarette. I got this picture directly off the internet. On the bottom, it looks like a cool bracelet that a teen might want to wear. This is actually an electronic cigarette. And this is leading to sales. In 2015, 850 million. I haven't updated this slide, but I'm sure it's well beyond this. And teens are getting exposed to this advertising. Nearly 70% of middle and high school students were exposed to this type of advertising way back in 2014. And there's one study that showed that of the adolescents who have seen e-cigarette ads in retail stores, that they were twice as likely to actually start using these e-cigarettes. So the marketing works. 44% of adolescents have seen e-cigarette ads on TV. It's probably higher than that. I had a colleague of mine tell me a story about her 5-year-old who saw an ad for Juul on TV and said, "Hey mom, I'm not gonna smoke cigarettes. I'm gonna do it the safe way and I'm gonna use Juul." So these products are making their way into the minds of even toddlers. Here are some examples of, well, here's, I'll skip over that. So here's my favorite celebrity, just kidding, not, Jenny McCarthy, who is posed here in an ad for a type of electronic cigarette. Here are some other ads really appealing to many different populations to use their products. Friends don't let friends buy cigarettes, but you can use electronic cigarettes, you can vape, and it's safe. So what about the effects on the lungs, which is also what I'm interested in? Well, is it just vapor? And the fact that we even call this vaping shows that the campaign and marketing strategies by these companies have been successful. Vaping is a term that implies vapor. Vapor is water in the gaseous form. And there is so much more than just vapor in these products, and yet vaping is the term that we use. What's in e-juice, for example? And that's the term that we use for the juice, the bottles of juice that you can buy and fill a e-cigarette that has a compartment with that e-juice and then use that device. So what's in e-juice? So we know that nicotine is present. There's things like propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin. That sounds pretty harmless, but these things are harmless if you ingest them, not if you inhale them. And then there's the issue of flavorings. Flavorings also sound pretty harmless, like orange and watermelon and citrus, lavender. These things are harmless to ingest, but they're not supposed to be inhaled into the lungs. There's numerous studies that show that these substances in e-juice, in e-cigarettes, cause damage to the lung lining or the lining of the airways of the lung, and can cause even effects to the point where you might be susceptible to bacterial infections and viral infections, including the novel coronavirus. There was a study that came out in the Journal of Adolescent Health this year, Kristen, I believe you alluded to it, that showed that young people who were vaping were more likely to be diagnosed with COVID and more likely to have symptoms of COVID. So heating this e-juice, it actually creates new chemical compounds that may not be in the ingredients listed in the device. And I said before, it's really important that we get our terminology right. It's not vapor, it's aerosol. Aerosol is the term that accurately describes what you're inhaling, and that is a gaseous substance that has particles in it that go into the lungs. And this aerosol is not harmless, it's harmful. It contains inflammatory compounds. It contains cytotoxic compounds, cells in the lung. And even the flavorings have been shown to be harmful. This is a slide that shows all of the different compounds that can be found in e-cigarette aerosol, including things like heavy metals like silver and nickel and tin and chromium, copper, selenium, arsenic, as well as things like benzaldehyde, formaldehyde. I mean, I think it's pretty intuitive that we shouldn't be inhaling these substances. Are there less substances in e-cigarettes compared to combustible cigarettes? The evidence suggests that yes, it is. However, e-cigarettes were never approved by the FDA. They were never studied. They were never properly analyzed to make sure that these products were safe for users. Like ever. We have decades of research on combustible cigarettes. We only have a few years worth of research on electronic cigarettes. Some of these chemicals listed here can be the same chemicals found in antifreeze and even in pesticides. Marijuana use is also becoming a problem. In the interest of time, I'm going to go through some of these quickly. What about the nicotine in electronic cigarettes? The information that we get from e-cig companies is that it's not harmful, that it's not as cancer-causing as combustible cigarettes. But the problem is, in products specifically like Juul, they use a very potent form of nicotine. It's potent, it's highly addictive, and as you guys probably know even better than I do, the adolescent brain is prone to addiction. It's primed with that dopamine effect that you can experience with usage of e-cigarettes. And exposure could have consequences to brain development and maybe even lung development. We still don't know. But we do know also that e-cigarette users are 4 times as likely to start using traditional cigarettes. So again, we have made so much progress when it comes to anti-smoking campaigns, and we are effectively backtracking really years of success that we've had in this arena. So can e-cigarettes actually help someone quit smoking? There is not evidence to suggest that this is the case. There are a few head-to-head trials of those that use other ways to quit smoking compared to e-cigarettes, and the results are very, very equivocal. They found that the e-cigarette groups in one of these trials was more successful in abstaining from smoking, but that e-cigarette group used e-cigarettes for much, much longer compared to the group that used other techniques like the patch and medications. And so if anyone says to you, well, e-cigarettes actually help quit smoking, I know my great aunt who really, used it and it really, really helped her. Well, maybe the great aunt is now using electronic cigarettes for the past 3 years and is still addicted to nicotine because of the potency of the nicotine that, great aunt Martha is using. I don't know why I picked on Martha. Any of you are Martha's.
Sorry, Dr. Rao. One quick thing. As we approach 3 o'clock here, 2 more minutes, I just wanted to add the evaluation link for those that do need to sign off. But if you're okay, Dr. Rao, we'd love to continue hearing your presentation for those that can't stay.
Okay, I can also stop and answer questions. I don't know if there's any questions. I do want to respect people's time and Zoom fatigue.
We haven't received any questions yet, although there's a lot of great discussion in the chat concerning those novelty products, those new melatonin products, social media marketing, and all of the marvelous things that you've been discussing.
I'll just give a few more slides then, specifically about the effects on the lungs. So also, we need regulation on these products. That is going to be almost impossible. There are thousands of types of e-liquid formulation and hundreds of e-cigarette types, and this is probably getting even worse. We know that the effects of e-cigarettes on the lungs include an increase in bronchitis, an increase in asthma exacerbations. You may see teens that have a chronic cough, may have reduced exercise tolerance, and have serious lung illnesses, including the vaping lung injuries that were reported nationally amongst all news outlets last year. We even see explosions of e-cigarettes, and there were over 2,000 burn injuries reported in the ED in the US. This picture is of a teenager in the DFW area who required, and this is from a local news media website, who required a ventilator to breathe because of severe lung injury. And I'll just end with what I tell kind of parents and anyone working with teenagers. There's certain things that you can kind of look for to know if a teenager might be vaping. This might include changes in behavior, that they're really addicted to nicotine and that they're using frequently, and this disrupts their schoolwork, their classroom work, and their sports performance. They may suffer from some nosebleeds, and you may notice discarded pods in the trash or in the bushes near your home. I always tell parents, well, they feel helpless, they feel powerless. I always tell parents, talk to your kids, and I think this is something that all of you are really, really expert at. And to use really open-ended questions. Are kids vaping at school? Are your friends? What do you know about vaping? Do you know what's in these products? Do you know anything about how it can damage your health and affect your life? I echo what Kristen said earlier, that the Truth Initiative is such an amazing resource. The American Lung Association is also a good resource. And the Truth Initiative has a text-based service to help teens quit their dependence on Juul. And I'll just end there. 301.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Rao.